Welcome to Fearless, Not Careerless. I'm Darren Mell. If you're stepping into the real world or trying to figure out how to move forward without losing your mind, this podcast is for you. I spent more than a decade hiring, training, and leading young professionals, and here's what I know. Talent matters. Work ethic matters. But emotional intelligence, integrity, and how you show up every day, that's what actually builds a career. Each week in under 12 minutes, we break down the real lessons that no one teaches you in school. Because being fearless doesn't mean being reckless. It means building something real. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Fearless, Not Careerless. I'm your host, Darren Mell, lifelong middle manager by choice and average human being, and also a leader of recent college grads for over a 10 and a half year period. And I'm doing a little something different here. Instead of just me yapping, I thought I'd bring on some of the people that I hired over that 10 and a half year period, sort of a where are they now? For those of you that are just finishing up high school or in college and trying to decide what you want to do with your career. And I think that's just a great perspective because we're all a little bit nervous when we come out of school, and to talk to people that are already out on their own, I think it's a great thing. So today, have one of my amazing favorite students that I hired several years back. His name is Gregg Rossman. Gregg, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of like where you're at now and what you're doing. And I'm going to fire some questions that are going to take you down nostalgia lane. So sort of like maybe sort of your career path, like where you like went to school and first, kind of rattle through the jobs you've had. Cause I think you're at like 20 jobs now, isn't
Something like that, yeah.
it?
I started at Florida State, and while I was there, I started working for Apple. I was doing Apple support over the phone, which is just about the
I remember
worst
that.
job. It's about the worst job that exists in corporate America. Dealing with the general public on a minute by minute basis is agonizing, and I did that for 4 years. So, lo and behold, what I thought would be a 2 month job turned into a 4 year job. Graduated from Florida State, kept the job with Apple for 2 more years, and then was hired by yourself at Equinix and rock and rolled with that for 2 years and 2 months. And then, kind of in the middle of COVID, took off and took a full, what do they call it, a full cycle sales job for a company called Know Before out here in Clearwater.
Hmm.
And I did that for about 6 months and realized that was not it. That was not the job for me. And then I started working for a startup out of Manhattan that was a fintech startup. And that was more around, it was basically procurement as a service, is what I would call it. There's being a buyer's agent, essentially, in
Hmm.
real estate terms, which is what I'm doing now. We're basically being a buyer's agent for companies that were looking to buy things like Salesforce and Zoom licenses and things like that. Doesn't say what the prices are on the website. You kind of never
Hmm.
know what you're buying and how much it should cost, or if you should get a discount for a certain amount of licenses or whatever. So that was my gig. I would work on behalf of those companies that were looking to buy stuff like that. Um, and then I got out of the startup world after about 3 years, unwillingly, and I started doing real estate. And it's kind of something that I'd always wanted to do. I just never really had the push to do it, I guess. And that's been great. It's been working for yourself is very hard. Just trying to build a business out of zero is very difficult, but also very rewarding. So that's kind of the super short version of my career path at this point.
Now I noticed you didn't go with the cool like hat that a lot of the realtors go with, when their pictures on the benches. Why no hat? Why no, glamour
No,
shots
no,
kind
no
of like
bench ads either. We're not doing any bench ads.
no? You don't
No,
want to be
I watched too much Modern Family and good old Phil Dunphy with the bench ads. I was like, I don't know if I want to be
somebody
Phil
Tom Selleck
Dunphy.
his bus fetch, one of my favorite episodes,
I don't
my
know if
daughter.
I don't know if I want that reputation. So Phil Dunphy
Okay.
as a human, sure. As a guy on a bench, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think I would have been Jay more because I think he had it better.
I think
We'll just
so.
say that.
I think he did.
So And I appreciate that because real estate, that's not tough because it's your name and people trust is a big factor when you're talking. Because I'm sure everybody, they probably say that their house is worth more than what they think it is. They want you to
Of
sell
course.
it for 1.2 million when it's worth 400, right?
Something like
But
that, yeah.
so when you landed your first job, what they call the real world out of school, what surprised you the most? What were you not ready for that stuck with you, like when you first started?
I would say, and this also applies to generally growing up, but the thing that surprised me the most was that nobody really knew what they were doing. And that totally surprised me. And I say like it's the same as growing up, like as a kid, you think your parents have it all figured out and like adults in general know what's going on. And then you get to that point and you're like, oh, no.
They
Nobody.
don't, yeah.
Some people have more of an idea of what's going on than others, but everybody's kind of guessing to a degree. That surprised me a lot. That like even the folks who you thought were like super buttoned up and generally were still kind of guessing at some things here and there. So that was the most surprising.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I wrote about this in one of the books about the fact that our parents are just grown up versions of us, and they're just
Yeah.
doing what they're modeling what their parents taught them. And I say this in the Fearless, Not Careerless book that I wrote for the experience with you guys for the last 10 and a half years. What I write in the book is that I don't even know if like the OGs, the first five, like I was just as scared as they were. I'm like, I'm gonna be working with a bunch of people half my age. Do I have to bring toys for them to play with? I mean, what how does this work? I mean, I didn't even, is there still nap time? Is there cookies and milk? I was scared, but they treated me with respect and it was a great experience. What what's the biggest mistake you made in your first 1 to 2 years?
Um, I think the biggest mistake I made was not not I don't know how to phrase this. Basically, I think one of the things I did well was really networking and realizing that people were more important than anything else, like who your network is
Hmm.
internally at a company just as much as externally was one of the most important things. But I don't think I did a good job of doing that as professionally as I could. I think it ended up hurting me down the line that like I was more of people's friends than like a killer salesperson, so to speak. So if I could go back and do it differently, I think that's one thing I would tweak where some of it's just my personality is just kind of comes out anyway, but I think that kind of worked against me in the long run of not I wasn't my brand wasn't necessarily like killer salesperson. It was like killer dude. And like that's great, but like I also want to get promoted. You know what I mean? So like that probably was something I should have done better.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Well, I love this one though. What's something that school prepared you for well, and then something that it absolutely didn't?
I feel like school didn't prepare me for much, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah.
So what I usually tell people is like what I learned in college, what benefited me, the things that I learned in college were when I moved to Tampa for this job, it was my first time living on my own. And what I mean by that is like lived at home with the parents until college, and then I had roommates all throughout college and never had my own place. And then I moved back home for like a year or so. And so this was like the first time on my own, no help. You learn how to do a lot of those things in college, how to take care of yourself, how to set your own routine,
Hmm.
how to keep yourself alive, generally speaking, how to handle yourself if you go out on
Didn't
a
realize
first.
that was that difficult.
Well, you'd be surprised.
What happened? He died. He couldn't take care of himself. He forgot to eat one day, and that was it. Okay.
Yeah, you forget to eat entire meals
Yeah.
sometimes. So th those are the things like the life skills that I feel like I learned a lot of in college, as well as the things of like showing up, being on time, literally being there, like going to class is like skills you learn, like being at work is important. Things that you would think are obvious and easy, but stuff that, like anything else, it takes practice, it takes repetition to become really good at. Those are the things that like college really helps me with. What it didn't help me with was like I still didn't know how to do my taxes. Like I didn't know how to I didn't know the difference between a W-2 and a 1099. Like it's so many things in the
W-2
corporate
is
world.
better. 1099 is a little more
Let
scary.
me tell you, I have found out. I have found out in a big way.
Yeah, I figured
Um,
real estate for sure.
yeah, it's hurtful. It's hurtful to see what Uncle Sam gets. So so anyway,
He's not my favorite uncle, I could tell you that. He's not the cool uncle for sure. Uh, what what was there? I mean, like, because you're doing something different now, but was there a moment that you almost quit, changed direction, or doubted yourself, or and what
uh,
happened?
not I wouldn't say a moment that I almost quit, but I mean I did leave. I did go for another job. And in hindsight, that was probably a mistake. But it was one of those things where it was during COVID and like there was so much ambiguity of what's going to happen over the next 6, 9, 12 months. Who knows how long? And so I kind of decided like, all right, I'm on like a timer here. If can only do this job so long before it starts to look like, why are you still doing that job? It's like it's got a short shelf life, so to speak. So I took a total leap of faith, which did not work out, mostly because the company was not ideal. Did not love it there. But I would say that's to answer that question, the reason I left was more due to timing than anything else. But I feel like a lot of things in life end up falling in that bucket. Um, if COVID had never come around, I probably would have never left. Um, but it's kind of how it happened. I had an opportunity, I took a shot at it. It didn't work out, but that led to another thing, which led to another thing, which in the long run, I wouldn't change it for the world. So,
So, what skill ended up mattering far more than you expected? Communication, resilience, empathy, preparation. I mean, what
um,
skill do you think? Yeah, and this I ask this because like one of the things that I write about too is that, and because when I wrote the first book, it's me making fun of myself as a 22-year-old and the shit that I didn't do that I watched all you guys do. And so for me, preparation, I mean, like looking back. So I mean, like, let me just kind of morph it into the one like looking back on all that. Like, what skills have stuck with you, and what do you think is the most important skill that you have that has helped you to this point? So now, kids, feels like you've landed where you want to be at now.
I think communication is probably number one. And I think it probably needs a new word or phrase or maybe a subset or something because communication's too broad. Like
Yeah.
everybody can speak. Uh, but like how it comes
It's
across to other
debatable. I've met some
people,
people there.
how it comes across and like the different types of personalities of people and like being able to match and mirror that. And not only that, but like timeliness of like in at least specifically in the business I'm in now, you'd be shocked at how long it takes people to get back to people on things. And one of the hallmarks of sales is that time kills deals. So you would
Yeah.
think speed is, and even like what I would call no update updates for folks like, hey, look, we've been on the market for 2 weeks. We haven't had any showings. Like I don't really have anything to report for you other than we might want to look at the price, but I'd like that. I'm just staying in touch. Like just so you hear from me once a
Yeah.
week, every
Hmm.
single week you hear from me. Like you'd be surprised how many people just don't like communicate well or often enough. And I think that's the number one thing that's like through all of my different jobs. And I guess honestly, it probably started with Apple because they taught us all about personality types and, what is it, the disc profiles that people are going off of now, but like how to interact with other people. And that was just over the phone stuff, not even in
Yeah.
person. But that kind of stuff sticks around for sure. That and it also helps you with things like conflict resolution and okay, if you have those communication skills you can really leverage that to your advantage.
Yeah. I think what you're saying is the little things because you're whether you believe it or not, you're not in real estate. You're in the people business because you have to
Yep.
deal with the personalities and the little things that you say, the how you follow up, the not cutting people off, the looking them in the eye when you speak with them. I went through a drive-through yesterday. I won't name the franchise, but it's a franchise that majority of the time, whenever you say something back to them, they always say, my pleasure.
Yeah.
And I think
They wear a lot of red.
yeah, well, we'll leave it at that. But I nicknamed the person at the drive-through window, I nicknamed them, huh? Because every time I said something they couldn't hear, they were like, huh? Huh? And I was like, what happened to my pleasure or whatever like that? It was just like that was the nickname of that person that came up. That's the I got served by a huh. And so yeah, and those are the little things.
It
Looking
is.
looking back, this is a good one because I didn't know 22-year-old Gregg Rossman, but what would you tell a 22-year-old Gregg Rossman on the day one of the job from what you know now?
Um, I think what the number one thing I would have said was listen and learn, which I thought I did a fairly decent job of anyway, but even still, there was so much there was so much to learn, and not even about the company and the products we sold and what we did, but just watch how, like yourself, watch how you like run a meeting, how like to like command a room, and how we would have people like Mike Campbell come in and knew everybody's names somehow, which I'm
Yeah,
still not sure how he would do that. In a room of 400 people, he would know every single person's name.
earbud. He
He
had
had
the
to have an
earbud in.
earbud. So he had some kind of AI implant back then, and
Somebody
we
was
didn't know
feeding it to
about.
him from another
Yeah,
room. There's a
yeah.
control room.
But that stuff mattered. Like it made a big difference. It made it feel very personal. All kinds of little things like that where it occurred to me much later how that made me feel, or how that came across as like, oh, I came across as very authoritative. Like they knew what they were doing. Like that they came across that way. Little things like that I would have said, pay attention to that stuff, because companies come and go, you leave companies, companies cease to exist, products come and go, but like the way people interact with each other sticks around.
Yeah, and I mentioned this in the previous podcast I did. I actually did one that was about the fear that college students have when they go up to talk to a professor or they talk to someone of authority. And I try to dispel the myths with them that we really don't know what we're doing. Especially
Yeah.
like when you come to interview with me, I always say like we never had any training. And so like you look at somebody just because they're older and they look older and you think age and time doesn't necessarily mean that that person's good at a communication and things just because of their authority level. So and I think that's a good point because fear from all the interviews that I did, so many of you guys over the years, I was probably at least 500 interviews I did during the time. Everybody was so fearful. And I think getting people to understand that they belong and that they shouldn't be fearful just because the person's older than them and has more experience. You're trying to tap into that experience.
Yeah.
Um, what skill do you think you've developed since graduating college?
Oh, that's a good one. I think the best skill, and this is a very corporate skill, is filtration system for the brain, between the mouth. That's definitely the number one skill, because there are things that you say, especially coming right out of college, that like they're not necessarily, it's not like it's a mean thing or a bad thing to say, but
Hmm.
all it takes is one person to think twice about it, not even to be offended by it, but like to think twice about, what do you mean by that? And 3, 4 years later, that person's in a leadership position, and it's between you and somebody else, and it's 50-50. And it's just little things like that where you're like, maybe I should bite my tongue on that one.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. It seems harmless, and sometimes it is. I mean, sometimes it's not little innocuous things, but there are times where I'm like, yeah, I'll probably keep that one to myself for now.
And what was your degree in?
My degree was in ICT, Information Communication Technology. So it was part of the communications college, but it was like the sister degree to the IT degree itself.
Okay. Why? Because you ain't doing that now. Why?
No, I'm certainly not.
We could talk about my degrees too if you want. They're useless.
They are. Um, so originally I went in as a business major because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So that's what everybody does who doesn't know what they want to do. Um, and it was financial accounting that took me out. That was the weed out class, and it weeded me out. And they said, well, all of your credits can transfer to three different degrees, and this was the one that made the most sense for me. And I thought, okay, well, it's also broad enough that like I'm fairly good. I like the tech industry in general, but I'm fairly
Hmm.
good with those that kind of stuff anyway. And communication is never bad. We took stuff like argumentation, public speaking, conflict resolution, like little classes like that where it's like those are very transferable skills for any job, anything you do in life. So it was a good general degree for somebody who had no idea what they wanted to do in the first place. And I think that would be my biggest piece of advice for folks that are like, if you don't know what you want to do, you don't have like a real serious drive to do one specific thing, pick something that's useful. I mean, IT is useful. It's not, just the study of fruits and vegetables. There's something to be used for it. But it also, like the communication aspect of it was so transferable that I could really take what I learned there and implement it. And it's one of the only things that I took from my studies that I've kept on today is communication and like how those skills have transferred.
Do you believe so in the Fearless book, the one I wrote on with you guys, I quoted something from a Simon Sinek, who's a
Oh yeah.
leadership book guy, but he says one thing in there that and he does a lot of TED Talks too, and he talked at actually the kickoff at my former employer, we'll call it. Um, and he said that you need to find your why it matters. And I want to see if you agree with this. But what he says is you can't go to the people that are closest to you. You can't go to your mom because your mom's always going to say the great things. You can't. You got to find your truth partners, five people that will, hey, we've been friends for a really long time. What is it about me that you like? Why are you friends with me? There's got to be some qualities that you like. And you almost have to almost sort of push that person to dig deeper. Well, you're funny. Well, that's not good enough. I mean, funny is it's a trait, but it's not like empathy or self-awareness or you're a good poker player or something like that. But so do you believe that like because that's a lot of what I think I'm when you talk about what you're good at, and I can see in your personality and everything, I think the real estate thing works for you. And for me, I had many, many years when I was working in cardiac rehab, which was my degrees for college. Like, you're good with people, you should go into sales. And I had that over and over again. And I put in the book, when people are saying that to you over and over, you should take heed in it because we all have what we love. I play guitar. I was not going to be the next Van Halen. So, but I love it. I'm good at it, but I'm not great at it. But I'm in a field now that like, and that's what the advice is to listen to asking people around you that you truly believe will give you real feedback. Do you believe that is true?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. People said the same thing to me, like you should go into some kind of sales because like you could talk to a wall. I'm like, and people did say that over and over again. And to a degree, being in real estate, you're in sales
Yeah.
sort of, but as I've quickly found out, you're really more, like you said, in the people business and in the marketing business because you need to get business.
Yeah.
Uh, Real estate kind of sells itself. If it's priced right, it'll sell. But generally speaking, like people would tell me that all the time. Oh, you can talk to anybody. And like that is true, but also that's not how you sell stuff. Like it's those are not the same thing. It's a helpful quality that I feel like I could relate to just about anybody and build a good rapport and that builds trust and that's all helpful. But those are all tangential skills and things to the actual selling ability,
Yeah.
which is very different. So I think it's helpful to if people are telling you something over and over again, you don't have to do it, but you should probably figure out why people are telling you that. And then maybe there's something else that you never even thought of that could relate to. But I generally agree with what you're saying. It's why like if people keep telling you one thing after another, and it's different people from different parts of your life, and they're all coming to the same conclusion, there's probably something to that.
Yeah. And it's interesting to say that because when I wrote the book C-Level Leadership, SEA, not C-level because I'm not one. But when I came up with it, I was like, well, what is my plan? And it hit me one day, and I call it that there's the emotion, there's your procedural side, like you're just talking about. There's the procedural side of selling real estate. There's a procedural side, what I do as a leader. But I argue that the other side of it, that what makes up what I call leading at sea level, is your emotional infrastructure. And it sounds like in the real estate world, you have to be very mindful. It's not just here's what's going to happen, here's the closing date, and here's escrow and all that stuff. You have to be able to read that person and listen to, are they comfortable with this? What are they feeling right now? Are they uneasy because the home hasn't sold? And to me, someone that is really good at connecting with people understands that while you're paying attention to procedural, you're also paying attention to the emotions of that person. And it's more what makes you successful is more outwardly watching them than being ready for what you're going to say next to them.
Yeah,
Make
I would
sense?
agree with that. I would say it's far more EQ than IQ in real estate, which I don't think anybody would argue with the IQ part, but the EQ part is very important. Like you said, reading people. There's probably some art to it. And I think any profession is going to have that bit of it. There's, like you said, the structural part and then kind of the art form part that goes along with it, and they inform each other. It's just the balance depending on what you're doing. It's the balance of that. Is it 50-50? Is it 70-30 one way or the other?
Yeah.
That's
Emotional
what,
intelligence
yeah.
and self-awareness. I've been saying those words a lot lately because sometimes I'll just be like, they're not hearing themselves at all. They're not.
It's not so common.
Yeah, I know. All right, one more question for you. And I love this one because this is the one I added in and you didn't know was coming. What advice do you have to the people listening to this that are in the shoes you were in a few years back? I mean, what is it like, think back to college and when you're like, I'm graduating and I'm gonna grab the world by the tail and pull it down and put it in my pocket. Sorry, that's my Chris Farley reference. But what is it? I mean, because these are, this is college students, high school students that are listening to this, and maybe my mom. But what is it? I mean, think back to that because I mean, for me, it's like, oh my God. I mean, it's
It's a great question. I think the one thing, and this is kind of a repeat of what I said before, is find very transferable skills. What we used to call soft skills. I don't know if they're still being phrased as that, but um, being able to talk to people and relate to people and carry a conversation will take you a lot further than you think, especially with stuff like with the way AI is going about how it can handle so much of the procedural stuff with such efficiency, and it's only going to get more efficient.
yeah,
Um, there's going to be less of a need for you're always going to need guardrails, but there's going to be less of a need to build from scratch a system and design a process. And you can give the AI some of that and it'll build it for you to a pretty good
yeah,
degree. You can tweak it or whatever, but the things that it won't be able to replicate are like how to relate to somebody and how to read a room.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's
those types of things. And in terms of like the job market, something that I have like really it really hit me like a couple years ago when I was kind of before I got into real estate and I was kind of in between, not really sure what I was gonna do. I ran into a guy who is a coach for folks who are looking for jobs. And the best piece of advice he gave me was like build a brand on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's still important. Post a lot on LinkedIn,
yeah,
even if it's just your journal, like use it because people will find you there and see you and start to think of you as an authority figure in whatever it is that you are interested in, even if you have zero authority in that industry in actuality. Authority is perception. It's
I
just like
agree.
reality is perception, same thing. If you come across as an authority figure and you've been putting it out there constantly and you've been taking good feedback and implementing that, all of a sudden people start to want you as their consultant or as their marketing person or whatever it is. So that's super important.
Yeah,
More important than I ever considered it to be, which is fun for me now being in real estate. I don't have to use LinkedIn, so I like to just poke fun at people now on LinkedIn because what are they going to do? Fire me? They can't fire me. So
No,
it's
but your
fun for
ability,
me.
your ability to be able to connect with people and like, look, we all think of it, especially as salespeople. I wrote, there's so much pops into my head because I just wrote so much in the last couple of years. But in sales, as a salesperson yourself, you can remember when you got treated well by another salesperson, and it
Yes.
resonates with you, and it sticks with you. And those are the experiences that I'm trying. Like, for those of you out there listening and that are in school, there is so much to your personality that you need to be able to be aware of than just what you're coming out with that degree and that ability to communicate with people. Because, and I said this in earlier podcasts, that if I'm hiring somebody, they've earned my trust at the end of the interview process. And if you're squirrely and you can't talk and you don't look people in the eye, you're not going to get the job. So,
Yeah,
well,
I agree with that.
I appreciate it. Gregg Rossman, everybody, real estate budding superstar here in the Tampa Bay area. And if you guys like listening to this today and you want more, drop me a note in the comments, hit the subscribe button, and let another college student or high school student know about this podcast because I'm out here to try to help all of you. Gregg, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
All right. This has been the Fearless Not Careerless podcast with Darren Mell. Before you go, remember this. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to move forward with integrity, curiosity, and consistency. If this episode helped you, share it with someone who's building their career too. And if you want more practical insight on leadership, growth, and staying grounded while you rise, subscribe here on Substack, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, or anywhere podcasts are welcome. Until next time, be fearless, not careerless. See you next week.